Alright, what's up my people? So, my name is Carl Davis and welcome to my first YouTube channel ever. Alright, so let's begin with a quick short story. Prior to May 6th, 1954, I think, nobody in the history of believing ever thought that Roger Bannister or anybody ever was going to break the 4-minute mile. Basically, run a mile in under 4 minutes. You know, it had never been done before, right? But this young guy, who was actually not an athlete, is what I'm hearing, went on to do the impossible, whereby he broke the 4-minute mile. And shortly after that, basically a few years after that, the 4-minute mile was broken countless of times. From 1954 to today, the 4-minute mile has been broken a gajillion times. Alright? Where is this leading to? So, was the barrier physical or psychological? Or was it a mixture of both? And I tend to believe personally that the barrier was psychological, because we now have high schoolers completely shattering something that before 1954 was, was dreamable. Like, breaking a 4-minute mile was considered something huge, And so, where am I going with this? We all have our 4-minute mile barrier, It's something that we think we can't do, or we're scared of doing, and then we see other people do it and we go, okay, it looks possible, but deep down we're scared of doing it. We don't think it's possible, And so, to me, or to somebody else, to me, it's content creation. For a long time I'd been thinking, hey, I don't really want to start content creation. I'm really scared, blah blah blah. What are people going to think about me? Stuff like that. Oh, I have a thick accent. Boom, boom, boom. This and that and this and that. And eventually, I came to the conclusion that, hey, yeah, they're going to talk about you. It's true. If you want to start that little business, they're going to be like, hey, see Bob over there? He's trying to start a little business. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And they're going to talk about you, and they're going to talk shit behind your name. And it's important that you still keep going. So, the topic of today is being cringe. Alright? Why does being cringe make people successful? So, to begin with, we gotta dissect the word cringe. What is being cringe? What is being cringe? Like, whenever people say, hey, that's really cringy, what is being cringe? When I first came to the United States, I used to eat with my hands. I loved eating with my hands. When I grew up, my mama told me, hey, food tastes sweeter when you eat it with your hands. I'm just African, And so, one time I was with my girlfriend, who's now my wife right now, at the time at her friend's house, and we had ordered out some Chinese, and I decided, you know what, I want to eat with my hands, so I just went right on, started digging it, eating with my hands, and I could tell from the looks of people that they were shocked by how I was eating. And so it made me think, oh wow, I look cringy to them, This, whatever I'm doing is really cringy. So what is being cringe? Being cringe is simply being unapologetically yourself. It's being able to make other people uncomfortable by doing what you want to do. And I'm not talking about killing somebody, no. I'm just saying, like, if it's something you like doing, I like to eat in my hands, wash my hands, go ahead and dig in, and that's unapologetically me, then I go ahead and do that. I don't have to please people, whatever I want to do. And so, perfection is subjective, my friends. Perfection is subjective. And perfection lies in the eye of the beholder. It's just like beauty, Whatever you think is perfect is not what you're homie down the streets think it's perfect, you know? Whatever you think, oh wow, this is so cool, Grandma Betty doesn't think that's cool, you know? So perfection, in a sense, is a blissful thing that people keep chasing that does not exist. That's why ain't nothing like perfection. You know, you can only try attaining it, but in reality, the sense of perfection is not there. It's just something we hope to achieve, but it's not there. And so, for the longest time, people are trying to seek perfection, but perfection does not exist. I was reading the Bible, and one of the books that Solomon has written, you know, he's considered the wisest king in Israel, and actually he's considered that there's nobody ever who's ever going to be wise than him, you know, in all time. And he basically says, I think it's in the book of Ecclesiastes, he says that do what makes your heart happy. You know, at the end of the day, if you're a Christian, you know you'll be judged, but you do what makes your heart happy. You know, if it's something that looks cringy to others, it don't matter, because at the end of the day, we have a limited time in life. So, how does being cringe allow you to be successful? Number one, being cringe allows you to attract people in your social space that you normally would not attract. You know, you're trying to be cool, nonchalant, whatever, all this bullshit is not gonna work. You know, because you're gonna attract people who are gonna leave once that scale or mask drops off. You feel me? And so that's the thing, is that you don't want to attract such kind of people in your life. You want to attract people who know you for you. All right? And so it allows you to be everything you ever wanted to be. One of sort of Spanish, I don't know who say this. I think it's Socrates or some ancient Greek philosopher. He talks about memento mori. Memento mori means every man must die. You know, remember, every man must die. And then we have memento vivere. It says, but remember to live. You know, and so being cringe allows you to be truly free. It gives you true freedom. It's the kind of freedom that nobody's gonna teach you about. You know, if you're somebody who likes to do a certain thing a certain way, and you're not hurting anybody, and you're being kind to everybody, but you just like doing something a certain kind of way, go ahead and do it. Because while the people you like might not like it, some people might think it's cool, you know? And this allows you to build a community of like-minded people, a niche, whereby people who actually like it are drawn towards you. The Wright brothers, these are people who led to the modern development of the plane system. And while they were doing their little, you know, building the little kind of trial planes, the whole community thought that they were probably nuts, you know? Because imagine in a community where nobody can fly, or nobody can go to space, or nobody can go anywhere, and then you have some two brothers trying to build kind of a plane that's gonna be in the air for a long time. If you think about it back then, like, oh wow, you know, here's some two brothers who want to build a plane, and this plane is supposed to fly in the air and transport people. It sounds nuts. Like right now, it doesn't sound nuts, but back then, whenever they told somebody that, people probably thought, whoa, this guy sounds crazy. I think he needs to be on some medication. And so, dare to dream, my guys. Dare to dream. If you're a young guy out there, you know, who wants to make content, and if you're a young guy or a young girl who wants to do something your family has not done before, you know, especially that, something that nobody in your family has ever done before, you will look like the cringiest piece of shit ever, you know? Because, remember, nobody knows how to do it. There's nobody in your family who's done it. If you're trying to be a singer, if you're trying to be a rapper, a rock star artist, a guitarist, you know, if you're trying to play soccer, there's a lot of people who are going to come to you and tell you you're cringe. But I tell you what, the thoughts you have, you know, everybody as an individual is different. The thoughts you have are only specific to you for a reason. And that reason is because, you know, you are attracted to who you are. So you become attracted, or you're attracted to a future that's not right there yet, but it's kind of blurry, but you can kind of see it. I don't know how to explain this, but basically, let's say in your mind you think you're going to be a, let's say, a talk show analyst or a comedian, right? And in your mind you think of yourself hosting big events and selling out the whole theater, you know, but nobody else can see that. There's a reason why it's only you who can see that and not nobody else. It's because you in this space dimension right now are able to feel your future self, and that's why you gravitate towards one area while other people gravitate towards another area. So you can kind of see it, but nobody's going to paint that path for you. Nobody's going to paint that picture for you. So it's upon you to kind of try to figure out, okay, what are the necessary steps that I need to take before I get here, you know? But if you think you're going to be a pilot, you've dreamt of being a pilot, or you've dreamt of being in the NFL, and everybody else wants to go to school and do blah, 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 but you want to be in the NFL, but other people keep stopping you and telling you, hey man, it's good to stay in school, my brother, you know? But you can see yourself there, right? Nobody else around you can see themselves there, but you can see yourself there. So ask yourself, why? Why is it that I can see myself doing XYZ and other people can't? You know? Because that's you. The only difference between the NFL version of you and this version of you right now is just a matter of time and the things you do with your time, you know? And a big factor of this is belief. So you have to be almost delusional, you know what, to a certain extent. And it's this delusion that people call cringe. It's this delusion, you know? Like, you're trying to make content, you set up your camera somewhere, you record yourself dancing or singing or whatever, somebody else is just randomly briskly walking, they take a look at you and they're like, gosh, that's so cringe. I cannot imagine myself making a video in front of others. Psst. Don't nobody give a fuck about you. You know what I'm saying? Nobody cares about you. You know? So you have to stick with what deep down you know is going to pivot you to this one thing. The thing about being cringe, why a lot of people don't like being cringe, here's the secret. This is why a lot of people don't like being cringe. It's because it takes a lot of guts to be cringe. Trust me. Between being cringe and being like everybody else, 99% of people want to be like everybody else. You feel me? So yeah. Sorry, I think my battery was dead. But between being cringe and being like everybody else, it takes a lot of guts to be cringe. Alright? I just want to tell you that. That's something I realized. It takes a lot of guts if you're in class to raise up your hand and ask a dumb question. Because normally people would look at you and go, what's wrong with this guy? You know, he's not trying to be cool or nothing, he's just cringe. And I used to do that in college. I used to like sit next to the teacher, raise my hand up, and people would be like, hey, here's the teacher's pet, you know? But who knows? Maybe one day you're going to be the next new Elon Musk. You're going to be the next new Jeff Bezos, you know? But it's these actions, it's these cringy things that people consider cringe. It's not really being cringe. It's being yourself, you know? It's being unapologetically yourself. And it's drawing you closer to your perceived reality that you can visualize in your mind that nobody else can see but you. Alright? And so that's the thing is, it takes more confidence, more zeal, zest, and gusto to become cringy compared to to becoming everybody else. And that's what people don't want you to know, is that they're scared as hell, you know? A lot of people, 99% of people, want to be themselves, but are not themselves because they give so much fucks about what everybody else is going to think about them. And so this thought process delays them from doing whatever they wanted to do. My first time shooting a video in a gym, I remember myself. I walked in, I have long ass tripod camera, you know, this long ass stick, and I set it up and I can already get some looks. I'm not recording anybody, I was just recording myself. I made sure I was there like a little bit later at night. I was in my own little section, you know, and I was doing pull-ups. So I'm pulling myself up as I'm trying to talk to the camera. So I'm pulling myself up and I realize, damn, people are looking at me. And people probably think I'm crazy, you know? But it's that delusion. It's that delusion. Because I can see myself creating content. I can see myself being successful. I can see myself making YouTube videos, but nobody else can see, you know? But because I already know what it's going to take for me to become a famous YouTuber, or I don't even care about famous YouTuber, just passing my message on to people, because I can already see that, nobody else can see that. And I'm not trying to explain to everybody why I'm setting up my camera to record myself doing pull-ups while I'm talking to my camera. You know, it doesn't make sense to them. And it shouldn't make sense, because like I said, memento mori. Everybody must die. Remember that. It's a bitter truth about life, ladies and gentlemen. Is you look around and, like, I got a question for you. Who was the richest person? Who was the richest person in 1856? You don't know. You have no idea. Nobody remembers. Nobody knows. Nobody cares. Nobody gives a fuck. Alright? And so because nobody cares, it's upon you to live your utmost life. If you want to make videos, working out, talking to people, inspiring people, singing, dancing, teaching people new skills, doing whatever the hell you want to do, go ahead and do it. Because you might be the next Roger Bannister. You know, you might be the next person who breaks the 4-minute mile. And the 4-minute mile is different to everybody. You know, to some people it's acting. To some people it's running. You know, to some people it's starting YouTube or whatever else they want to start. You know, but we all have our 4-minute mile that we ought to break. And for you to break that 4-minute mile, you're going to look crazy because society has not seen anybody break that 4-minute mile. Remember that. There's nobody in your family who's broken a 4-minute mile yet. Literally. But there's nobody in your family who's broken a 4-minute mile. And so it's going to look weird for them seeing you putting in the reps early morning. You know, when you're stretching and it's cold as a motherfucker or it's hot as hell and you're stretching and you're trying to put in the reps, everybody is going to say, this guy is cringy. This has never been done before. Who does he think he is? And it's that right there that should motivate you to be like, okay, alright. I'm going to break this 4-minute mile for myself. Not for nobody else, but for myself. I'm going to be my own Roger Bannister. I'm going to be my own Wright brothers. Alright? And so remember, it takes a lot of guts. But I know you can do it. So to any young person there, old person, middle-aged person, any kind of age person, and you want to pursue something, and you think it's cringy, it's supposed to be cringy. Because if you're not cringy, everybody else would do it. But it's supposed to be cringy. So you better go out there, set up that camera, do that cringy thing you want to do, and get on with it. And make some money, you know? And that's what's up. Alright? Now be blessed, man. Come on now.